What happens when the world's largest military alliance and the world's most unpredictable nuclear power collide? Tonight, we break down the reality behind the tension and whether Russia versus NATO is closer than anyone wants to admit. The origins of the Russia-NATO conflict. The roots of the Russia-NATO confrontation go back to the final days of World War II, when the West and the Soviet Union emerged as rival superpowers with incompatible visions of the world. NATO was created in 1949 as a defensive alliance against Soviet expansion, but to Moscow, it was always a tool designed to contain and weaken Russia. After the USSR collapsed in 1991, Russia expected the West to ease military pressure. Instead, NATO expanded eastward, adding former Soviet republics and Warsaw Pact states. Every expansion felt like a tightening noose around Russia's borders. Tensions exploded in 2004 when the Baltic states joined NATO, placing the alliance directly on Russia's doorstep. Then came the 2008 Georgia War and later the 2014 annexation of Crimea, which cemented Russia's belief that NATO was an existential threat. From that point forward, the relationship shifted from uneasy cooperation to open hostility, a geopolitical clash decades in the making. NATO's military power versus Russia's military power. NATO commands the largest combined military force in human history. With 31 nations, more than 3 million active troops, unmatched air power, and a global network of bases, NATO's capabilities far exceed Russia's in sheer numbers. But Russia's strength doesn't lie in quantity, it lies in strategy, geography, and firepower. Russia maintains one of the world's most powerful missile arsenals, advanced air defense systems, and hypersonic weapons that NATO is still scrambling to counter. It also has the advantage of fighting close to home, with shorter supply lines and rapid troop mobility across its massive territory. While NATO dominates in technology, naval power, and logistics, Russia maintains a dangerous edge in certain domains like artillery density, electronic warfare, and nuclear readiness. The real question is not who has more weapons, it's who can use them faster, smarter, and with greater resolve. And in a Russia versus NATO scenario, both sides believe they have the advantage, which is what makes this standoff so deadly. The Ukraine war as the trigger point. Ukraine is more than a battlefield. It's the fault line between two world orders. For Russia, Ukraine represents lost imperial territory and a strategic buffer zone. For NATO, Ukraine is the front line for defending European security and stopping Russian aggression from spreading further into Europe. When Russia invaded in 2022, the conflict transformed NATO's mission overnight. Countries that once hesitated became fully committed. Massive military aid, intelligence sharing, advanced air defenses, and billions in economic support flowed into Ukraine. What began as a regional conflict became a NATO-backed effort to stop Russia's advance. For Moscow, this confirmed a long-held belief. NATO was no longer just expanding, it was directly influencing wars along Russia's borders. The war in Ukraine hardened positions, eliminated diplomatic trust, and brought NATO's forces closer to Russia than ever before. Every missile launch, every border strike, and every escalation carries the risk of dragging NATO and Russia into direct confrontation. The very scenario the world fears most. Russia's strategy: divide, pressure, advance. Russia's long-term strategy against NATO revolves around slowly weakening the alliance from within while expanding its own influence. Militarily, Russia focuses on hybrid warfare, blending cyber attacks, propaganda, sabotage, and covert operations with conventional military force. This creates confusion, delays NATO's responses, and tests the unity of member states. Russia also uses energy leverage, especially over Europe, to pressure governments and create political division. On the battlefield, Russia strengthens key positions in the Arctic, Kaliningrad, Crimea, and the Black Sea, building networks of missiles, radars, and electronic warfare units designed to push NATO forces back. Moscow aims to force NATO to spread its resources thin across multiple fronts. Politically, Russia supports movements that destabilize European unity and weaken trust between Western nations. By exploiting internal tensions and projecting military strength, Russia hopes to fracture NATO's resolve without ever needing to confront it directly. But if that strategy fails, Russia keeps another option ready, using rapid military advances to create new realities before the West can react. NATO's strategy: contain, deter, prepare. NATO's primary objective is to prevent Russia from expanding further into Europe. To achieve this, the alliance has built the largest military reinforcement on the continent since the Cold War. Over 300,000 troops are now on high alert across Eastern Europe. New bases and forward operating sites have been established in Poland, Romania, and the Baltic states. Advanced fighter jets patrol NATO airspace. Missile defense systems guard vulnerable borders, and NATO's rapid reaction forces can deploy within hours to any member state under threat. NATO relies heavily on its air dominance, naval power, and long-range precision weapons to contain Russian movements. At the same time, NATO conducts large-scale joint exercises to demonstrate unity and readiness. Politically, NATO seeks to maintain cohesion among its members, despite internal disagreements. Deterrence is the core of NATO's strategy, showing Russia that any attack on one NATO state will trigger overwhelming ventilation. But as tensions escalate, maintaining that balance becomes increasingly difficult. Could Russia attack a NATO country? This is the question military analysts debate most, and the answer depends on geography and momentum. The highest risk zones include the Baltic states, where narrow borders and limited NATO defenses present opportunities for rapid Russian advances. Another hotspot is Poland, a key transit hub for weapons heading into Ukraine. Russia may also escalate in the Arctic or Black Sea, where overlapping air and naval patrols regularly bring both sides to the edge of confrontation. While a direct attack on NATO is risky for Russia, accidental clashes are a real danger. A misfired missile, a drone entering NATO airspace, or a naval collision could trigger Article 5, forcing all NATO members to respond. Russia could also test NATO with hybrid attacks, such as cyber strikes or covert sabotage, to see how the alliance reacts. Most experts agree a full-scale invasion is unlikely, but not impossible. The danger lies in miscalculations, not intentions. And as tensions rise, the room for error gets smaller every day. The nuclear equation: mutually assured destruction. Nuclear weapons are the ultimate shadow hanging over the Russia-NATO confrontation. Russia possesses the world's largest nuclear arsenal, with thousands of warheads and a doctrine that allows early nuclear use if it feels overwhelmed in a conventional war. This doctrine, called escalate to de-escalate, suggests Russia might use a limited nuclear strike to force NATO into backing down. NATO, on the other hand, relies on its nuclear sharing program, where U.S. nuclear weapons are stationed across Europe and ready for deployment. Both sides maintain powerful submarine-based nuclear forces that guarantee retaliation even if cities or bases are destroyed. The principle of mutually assured destruction means that once nuclear escalation begins, stopping it becomes almost impossible. Even a small nuclear exchange could devastate Europe and trigger global collapse. That's why the nuclear equation is both a deterrent and a terrifying wildcard, preventing war yet threatening extinction if diplomacy fails. In every Russia-NATO scenario, nuclear risk is the line no one wants to cross. The future: negotiation, Cold War 2.0, or World War III. The future of Russia-NATO relations is balanced between three possible paths. The first is negotiation, a scenario where both sides freeze current borders, reduce escalation, and agree to long-term security guarantees. This would require massive dialect shifts and concessions from both sides, making it difficult but not impossible. The second path is a new Cold War, where Russia and NATO avoid direct conflict but increase military buildup, cyber warfare, espionage, and proxy wars across different countries. This is currently the most realistic scenario. The third path, however, is the most dangerous. A full-scale NATO-Russia war triggered by miscalculation or battlefield escalation in Ukraine or the Baltics. Such a war would be global, involving cyber attacks, missile strikes, and unprecedented destruction. The world's future depends on what decisions are made in the next 6 to 12 months. For now, both sides continue preparing, watching, and waiting, knowing that one wrong move could change history forever. Russia and NATO now stand closer to conflict than at any time since the Cold War. One mistake, one strike, one decision could change the world in a single night. The question isn't if tensions rise, it's how far they'll go. Stay aware, stay prepared, and keep watching as this story unfolds. This is Geo War Chronicles, and the next chapter is already on the way.